Well, good morning, and it's Tuesday, I think, and it must be somewhere around the 16th or the 17th, according to my calculation, being good old Jack Domenio again. But this morning, to keep me on the straight and narrow, lurking in the there he is, Fergus Wood. Good morning, Fergus.
Morning. How you doing?
Not so bad. You're a little bit faint, so don't be afraid to talk up. We're the mouths that roar. Right, this morning on the weather front, it's only going to reach about 12 or 13 degrees again today, much the same as yesterday, but a light breeze, so it shouldn't feel too cold. And we're not going to get any rain until late afternoon, and then there's about a 40 or 50% chance of rain. Now, those who don't know, because everybody knows everything that I ever talk, I'm the last to know anything, but Fergus is a very, very successful, what I might say, vintner. The first question I'm going to ask is this the sort of rain or weather that the local vintners, the Sussex wine growers would like?
Well, probably at the moment it doesn't really affect them, to be honest with you, because there's sort of the harvest has happened, and it's sort of like a shutdown period basically. Then their chance to have a month off basically and just relax. All the picking happens towards the early October, and so it's the time where the buds are sort of the vines will get everything. So yeah, it doesn't take it or leave it basically. I'd say.
But you're a wine cellar. I take it that this is a good time for you coming up to Christmas.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, we're getting a lot busier now. Obviously, champagne and English fizz. It's on everybody's horizon to celebrate. And also your more expensive wines as well, with big reds and with big labels. So that's been quite good so far. Yeah.
Right now, you've got a very fancy name for your company, very exotic. So you had better tell us what it is and where the name comes from.
So my company is called Camino del Vino, which stands for Wine Path in Spanish. And we try and look for interesting and uncommon wines around the wine world. Try and broaden your horizon outside of, say, New Zealand, There's over 10,000 varieties in the world. Just by trying different stuff, you might find different styles that you like, and it's all a bit of fun, really. I'm a big foodie, and so trying new stuff, or mushrooms or whatever, it's always quite a bit of fun. You might as well keep broadening and learning a little bit more as you go along. You might stumble across something you never thought existed, and then to try and taste that, and then go, actually, I love it. And then, just change the shades and just stick to it, staple, selection of variety.
Yesterday we showed a little clip from your programme, which will return soon. It was with Annie Verrill, who unfortunately won't be with us. She's gone on to greater things. But I think we called it liquid poetry. Was that right?
I think it was, yeah. It sounds the same. It's definitely, along those sort of lines. Yeah.
I mean, I almost forgot about the wine with the two of you insulting one another.
Yeah, back and forth, wasn't it? Yeah.
Right, we'll get down to some of the important business of the day, and let's take a look at the newspaper headlines, the national ones. The Daily Mail revealed hospital bomber a Christian convert. And that seems to be the theme this morning. That is amazing. Is that the bloke that let off the bomb outside, I understand, a maternity hospital in Liverpool yesterday, had become a Christian. To me, I don't quite understand why they're making such a play of it, but the fact is that I suppose that a lot of people would say Muslims again, so somebody's saying no, they were a Christian. And the Times actually carries on with that. Bomber was a refugee who converted to Christianity. Well, refugee I can understand. Where was he a refugee from? It doesn't say in this early bit. So, but anyway, he was from overseas. The bomber who targeted new mums and babies. The Mirror. It gets right to the point. The Metro, lucky to be alive. And the Daily Express, taxi suicide bomber was a Christian convert. It goes on with the same theme. The Daily Telegraph, suicide bomber was a Christian convert. My goodness me, they're all at it. The Guardian, terror threat raised after Liverpool suicide attack. Well, at least the Guardian chose a different headline. But what's your reaction to seeing the newspapers carrying headlines that the bomber was a Christian, the convert? I mean, I'm not quite sure what they're trying to say.
No, they're clearly trying to. It seems like they're selling something that's quite attention grabbing, as quite classic media sort of style, and yeah, it's probably seen as a little bit uncommon that he is Christian, and so it's just something that they're chucking out there, really try and grab, sell some light, sell some papers, and, yeah. I think the whole thing is really shocking. Though it is like if you have a chance to watch any of the news or the videos there or anything like that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. I'm not sure whether it makes much difference. I mean, having survived 15 years in Northern Ireland, is if I got done by a bomb, I wouldn't have, or my family for that matter, I wouldn't have cared which side it was. A bomber is a bomber, a terrorist is a terrorist. And the strange thing is that my mother came to visit my wife and my daughter and myself more or less towards the end of the Troubles, I would say, probably about 1987, 88. And my wife said, she said, oh, well, I couldn't go into Belfast. And my wife said, don't be so silly. We all go into Belfast. No. So off they trundled down to Belfast and walking around past the City Hall, and damn me, didn't a bomb go off. My wife didn't know whether she could look my mother in the eye. Okay, get booster jabs to save Christmas, the Prime Minister tells over 40s. Now, you're a young sprout, 23, 24. We're always on now about age, one way or another, when it gets to COVID. I mean, as a young man, I know how I view it as an older chap, but as a young man, how do you see this argument about whether the age should be looked after or the young, or it seems to become a them and us situation, picked up by everybody, is what the old get and what the young get. How do you see it?
I can see why they do it. I can see, obviously, when you're older, you're a little bit more prone to picking up the diseases or getting more infected. I'd say just because your natural insides just aren't as defensive as when you are younger. I'd say, from my limited science knowledge that I know. But yeah, I think the whole thing is very interesting. The whole COVID thing has been, the way it's been handled has been quite interesting. I think it's definitely caused a lot of family conversations and all that sort of stuff. So it's interesting. It's an interesting one. I do.
Yeah. Now, as a businessman, one of the interesting things, we just pause from the newspapers, we go to the Financial Times in a moment, but as a businessman, one of the interesting statistics that I found that we have to be guided by, of course, in television, is that the audience that would view the sort of thing that we do is between 40 and 70, but they have, according to some statistics, 95% of the purchasing power. I mean, that's a huge amount, and that everybody bends over backwards to do to make programs for the younger people, only to find that really they have no money to spend. Now, should we be driven by advertising? Not entirely, but somebody has to pay the bills somewhere, and particularly if the BBC get stripped of its license, there's going to be a mad scramble. So how do you as a businessman you need to advertise on television, presumably, but also you find that that's really not the target market for you, or is it?
Personally, for us, I mean, we haven't got to the scale yet where we can probably afford to advertise on TV. But I guess they probably within the marketing department know you. I mean, you've been in the TV industry for a long, long time, so you know that they'll know their demographic audience, who's watching their audience. So as long as well, time slots are probably a big thing as well in the advertising industry. When can you get it? When's the hot time? When you're going to get the most amount of people on there? And so I guess from a business standpoint, they should know what they're doing. They should know that they're putting their money in the right area, targeting the right sort of people. So you'd hope that someone's at least got their head switched on basically, and not wasting quite a lot of money. But it's the whole advertising, especially like with social media cropping up now, everybody's more on their phones. And yeah, with like streaming services as well, you sort of, I mean, Channel 4 as well, for instance, sometimes their adverts work on their streaming platforms, sometimes they don't. Or even with, I'm an F1 fan, and at the moment, whenever I try and watch actually F1 for the weekend, they basically just show the whole recording of the episode rather than when it's like split off and cut away to their like timed adverts. So it's it's an interesting one, the whole ad space. Yeah. So
okay, you flog wine, if I can be indelicate and put it that way. But do you find any correlation between? I mean, I travel the world, and I know I know that sometimes plonk is much better than expensive wines. But do you find any correlation between the wealthy and the rather poorer purchaser about wines? I mean, do the wealthy naturally go for high-priced wines, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent?
I'd say so. They probably tend to. I think when you get there's a lot of when you well, I guess people fall it. Again, it depends what your taste is. But again, if you've got a lot of money, you're probably wanting to pay for a label such as Chablis or a wine region that comes with a lot of history and a lot of. I'm flogging my wealth, I'm showing off my wealth by buying a Merceau or a Chablis or a California Pinot Noir or something like that. So it's an interesting one. Then we've got clients as well that do buy that, but then they also buy they're trying something new in their sort of style. So again, it's just a complete preference sort of thing, what the individual is up for trying, and just if you can get your convincing strategy, if you get your marketing strategy right, and they're up for trying something new, then it doesn't really matter what we find is that they're not both subsets are impartial to try something new basically. So that's what I.
Right, well, let's go back to the papers. The Financial Times. Shell's plans to move tax base to UK has spurred the Dutch into the last-ditch action. So it appears that, I can't see the guts of the story at the moment, but it appears in the story that Shell are now going to move over here, or at least part of their operation over here. And the Dutch have been sort of saying it'll never happen, we're part of Europe and so on. And now they've woken up to the fact that business doesn't have any sentiment when it comes to Brexit, non-Brexit or whatever. It's all a question of how much money they're going to make. So have you had any reaction or reflection on Brexit?
Yeah, I have. It's probably I have. From the wine industry perspective, it's been very damaging, I'd say. Prices across the board have shot up, especially with organic stuff or anything that needs to be certified for being greener. So that's gone up just because there are different governing bodies that within the EU, well, the EU don't accept UK wine and the UK one doesn't accept EU organic governing body or governing certification body. And so they require an extra person to come around and do their own checks, which increases the price of the bottle, but also shipping as well, just the HGV, this whole HGV driver crisis as well. The UK doesn't have the people that they used to before Brexit happened, And yeah, and this is just seriously affects lead times when you're trying to import some wine or trying to get someone to a supplier. They'll have the stocks will run out and you won't get the wine. You won't see the wine for weeks, even months. And this is and this is not Brexit related, but it's related to that. The New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc is it's quite a rarity at the moment to find it anywhere. A lack of HGV drivers, labour shortages as well. It's quite from the wine market, it's been quite bad for us. Yeah.
Now we have this wonderful chap, Mickey Collins, who taps in from time to time, and he's very controversial. I just love him because he really puts the cat amongst the pigeons. And he says, "We are currently in World War III, but you probably won't believe it because you haven't been told by the BBC." Oh, Mickey. Well, he gets into pretty heavy stuff about the money systems this morning, which Mickey, your comments are absolutely super, but I think I don't have time to explain it or even understand it. Let's go back now to the Daily Star. Adultery won't fade away in Jagger and Macca's fierce feud, and he says the front page says, "Who are you?" And it shows a story of Macca and Jagger in their usual years, in their youthful years, and apparently this fight between the two of them has been going on for eternity. So now I suppose Roger Daltrey has been pulled into it, and he says he's not going to pull out. He's going to keep commenting on it. Is the smiling face of Swilmeen dominates the front pages as the papers reveal details about the man who died. With the homemade bomb. But this is the Star, which says Richard Madeley can't wait to get stuck into the Bush Tucker trial. I'm mad for it, declares the paper's headline. Well, that's not what the headline says at all. Whoever's reviewing that got a bit behind. So those are the papers. Right, just for a moment, I'm going to show everybody who isn't from Lewis where we are. So stand by. Well, now there's Lewis, as many people won't have seen it before. Hang on, see whether we can make us a little bit larger. There we go. Yeah, it's all a bit jerky this morning, but at least we've got you, Fergus, and thank goodness for that, because it. Right, we'll remove that one from the studio, and it might make us a little less jerky. Now, people would say that they don't think of Sussex as a wine producing area, but in terms of English wines, it's pretty prolific, is it not?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, you've got especially around the Ditchling area, but also, oh yeah, as a stretch over into Kent as well. It's got the whole sort of southeast area is fantastic. It shares similar. It shares a similar land to terroir to Champagne, the Champagne region, and as global warming sort of increases, and the region becomes a little bit hotter, a bit more favourable for growing more champagne style grapes. Yeah, the English market, or English wine in general, should improve. So, of all the bad stuff that comes out of global warming, it's probably going to be quite good for the English wine market. So, yeah.
A lot of people don't understand the difference between British wine and English wine. Can you explain?
This is the first time I've heard of British wine, to be honest with you. I only know that, well, British wine I assume would encompass Wales and Scotland, but this is the first time I've heard of British wine.
Well, now I'm feeling very proud of myself this morning. I've actually caught a vintner out with a question that a lot of people do ask. I didn't mean to. I thought you would come up with the answer. Apparently, British wine is made from some sort of solution that comes in casks, and they actually sort of add the water and so on here. Whereas, of course, English wines are made directly from English grapes. You find out all sorts of things on this program in the morning. Not a lot of people know that, and not a lot of people want to know it, but there you are. I mean, British wine is actually a bit of a fix. It's not a true. Well, I suppose it is, but it's not a pure wine. Let's put it that way. Who knows what's in it? Right. First, let me ask you something about the politics that's going on, because I actually did a little blog last night, and I do when I either get angry or I'm bored or whatever. And I did a little blog about the fact that on social media you get a lot of people who say, oh, sleaze, it's all the Tories' fault. And then you get another group going, oh, sleaze, it's all Labour's fault, and so on and so forth. My view is that a plague on all their houses, it's the politicians who are keeping everything in place simply because they want to maintain the rather fanciful way of life, not fanciful, fancy way of life that they actually enjoy. Now, you're a young man, I'm an old man. Am I an old fogey having a go, or what's the younger generation's view of what's going on in Westminster? Because there's no question there is a lot of sleaze going on. There's a lot of corruption and money changing hands for one thing or another. How do you younger people view that?
Yeah, they're definitely not covering themselves in glory at the moment, a lot of what's coming out of Westminster. But yeah, with the whole, I guess there's, sometimes again there's a little bit of tabloid sort of selling newspaper sort of thing again. I think in some aspects, the renting out your first home, and then, or if you own a property, also renting it out and then renting out another one. But from when I was reading the Times about it, it just seems like it's a loophole that people are exploiting within and it's a fault of the system really. And if you're smart enough to take advantage of it, then in my opinion, then you might as well. You're looking after number one at the end of the day, so if you can find this sort of loophole and benefit from it, might as well take advantage before it closes up.
Yeah.
I think everybody, if you're in that sort of position, you can do that information. You could take advantage. It probably doesn't look great from an MP sort of standpoint, kind of represent the public. But as long as they're doing their job and looking after their constituency, then, in my opinion, I think it's fine. It's a fault of the system. You look at that like accounting. Yes, accounting. There are loopholes everywhere that companies exploit, and it's a fault of the system to try and close these loopholes off, basically. So, yeah.
Well, I agree that the system is faulty. Reform certainly should be on the agenda. But I think it's sort of interesting that the whole thing about MPs' expenses has come back again. And they do have a tendency, when they get caught, to pass legislation which then protects them from the next time around.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, it was that. Yeah. I mean, the whole thing with this fella who was not Williams, but the other guy who's been up in the news recently, where he was caught with his hand trapped with he's caught in hot water anyway, and that was I think it was like building or trying to he was lobbying for like food companies and all that sort of stuff. And he paid £1 million for that by these two companies. But then for him to be investigated and then sort of go, no, I've actually been fine. And then the government actually said no, for them to all get behind it. That is my bad. When accountability and transparency is diminished within the government, it gets to quite a shocking point. So it needs to, it needs to pack their ideas up, basically, and needs to sort it out. So, that's the one I actually feel very passionate about. That I'm actually like, you are overstepping the mark quite a lot. That needs some sort of action like that, and it needs to be more severe, basically. I think. Well, he was getting banned for be suspended for 30 days for something that which is really bad. So you just like, and then they were thinking of they all got behind changing it, and so it was support it. Like, this is just ridiculous. You can't hold anybody, can you? You're just changing the rules to suit yourself. It's not what you should be doing. So,
I must say that the question of second jobs is every time that they give themselves a raise or an extra 10 grand because of COVID or something, it's because they have such a heavy workload. And then the next thing you know is they're all saying, well, it's perfectly all right for us to have a second job. No wonder the first job is paying for the workload of the second job. I wish I could get a job like that.
Yeah.
Right, let's I've got a little bit of footage here. There's me rabbiting on a lot, but the intro I think is interesting because it shows a bit of Lewis, and let's just take a look at that for a moment. Now, I've stopped that because the rest is me rabbiting on. There's enough rabbiting on from me in this program as it is without listening to that. But those sort of scenes show us as quite an idyllic society, really, Fergus. Now, you're born and bred in Sussex, aren't you?
I was born in Leicester, actually. My parents met up in Leicester, and I stayed up there when I was 2, and then moved down to Sussex. Yeah. And I've lived in Upfield when I was 2 till about 12, and then lived here the last however years.
Now, I mean, I've always, whenever I talk about you with some considerable admiration, because I say that we met because you were gathering money to start your business by actually waiting table in I always used to call it Wild Bill Hickok's. I can't remember, Hickson something or other, wasn't it? But it's gone now. Yeah. But I mean, you are enterprising, and you're a go. So, looking at some of those scenes there, it makes it look as if we live in actually Eden. What's your reflection of the real Sussex, or is that a pretty fair reflection of Lewis and the surrounding area?
No, I think where we live is we are very blessed to live here. I mean, I live just outside of Ringwood, but we have the South Downs, who was just coming off Lewis, and it is very, very nice here, especially over lockdown when we were forced to stay at home. Living in such a rural area and having that time to just reflect is very, 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 just sort of like actually quite blessed to live around here. It is very, I'm in agreement with you.
Not a bad place. But we are wine drinkers, aren't we?
Yeah, you like your punch stuff, don't you? You like your lot of flavour behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm supposed to be famous for oysters and champagne, and I got used to oysters when they were cheap, and now that they're not so cheap, I have to be very choosy. But actually, one of the things that I think that, and you are going to start a new program, and not only talking about the wines that you import, but also about what people should look for in wines. Now, yesterday, the little clip that we showed yesterday was you and Annie, and you had a white wine. I can't remember what it was exactly, but Annie was pumping you for information about what you should do and say about white wines. So if I came along to you and said I know absolutely nothing about wines at all, which is actually partly true because I don't, I drink it and I forget the detail, is what would you say about our white wines here? And because I know that mostly it's the red and the champagne that win medals and so on in blind tastings. What would you say about white wines here, and what should you look for generally in a white wine, assuming that you've got a fairly neutral palate?
So yeah, I tell you, you're right. The English sparkling wine, you can't technically call it champagne, that has to be grown in the Champagne region. But English sparkling wine itself has been picking up lots of awards, and I think the red as well, and also the whites. You do, depending on which vineyard you go to, there are awards being picked up in both areas. I think with your red wine, the lighter style is better. In the UK, I think it's suited to it because the climate's not quite there. But I think that the white wines are more dominant, I'd say, of the two colours within the English wines, just because it's a slightly cooler climate, which favours your lighter styles and your lighter styles of white wines and white varieties, such as your Bacchus. Also, Chardonnay is making a big comeback. Is being grown here as well quite successfully, and it just it's where we sit along in the world, and also the weather that we get. It just suits a little bit better for white wines. It depends on what your style and your preference. If you like a light style of wine, quite aromatic, and it's not too intense. It doesn't have too much wine for you. And I think the wine you were talking about was a Riesling that we did with Annie from Germany, and that should be, or that could be something that could work within the UK market, because it favours, it likes that sort of slow growing ripening process. It doesn't need to be hit with a lot of heat basically to ripen properly. So that could be something that we might do a little bit more in
some people think, I'm not going to, the French actually shot themselves in the foot when they insisted that Champagne could only be called Champagne if it came from the Champagne region. But in fact, really, we used to use it as a generic name for all sparkling wines. So why is it that Prosecco seems to have risen as the main contender to Champagne?
Well, I think they're different. They're made in a different sort of style. So it depends. Champagne, I think, will always take your fancy, your going out, your celebration with, if you're trying to be fancy sort of wine. They're made in a different method. So Champagne's made in quite a traditional tap method, whereas Prosecco's made in a tank method. So there's different styles, and they go through different processes. But Cava, for instance, is made in a very similar way to Champagne, and that's also another one that I don't know why it has never taken the sort of fame that Champagne has. You find, we supply for weddings a Cava that is absolutely fantastic. It tastes very, very similar to Champagne, and so I don't know why it's never really seen that kick or that lift off, basically, that take off that Champagne has, or I don't know whether it's probably the oldness of the region and the history that comes behind it, and then I guess just a little bit more hype. That's probably why some brands are larger than others and all that sort of stuff. Just get a bigger name and a bigger fuss behind it, and then increase the price, and then it all sort of feeds into itself at the end of the day. But yeah, that's what I say.
Yeah. Let's just pause a moment and catch everybody up, because it's 8:39 this morning on this Tuesday morning, which I think is the 17th. Well, we'll call it the 17th, whether it is or it isn't. We will most certainly say it's 8:39. That what you can expect out there is some scattered cloud. Well, no, actually, it's more than scattered. Although whenever they say things, I look out of the window and there's always something different. It's going to be fairly dry with overcast until late afternoon, around 4 or 5, when there is a good chance of rain. And the temperature 12, which is fairly chilly, but that's what it was yesterday, and I didn't find it too uncomfortable. And whenever I talk to the bus driver, there you go, the hiccups again, always come at about this time. It's the brandy and the coffee in the morning. I'm convinced that it does that. I talk to the bus drivers, and I say fine morning or rotten morning or whatever. And I found that all this past week I've been saying not a bad morning out there, and it hasn't been a bad morning out there, has it?
No, it's a very nice weather. I walked my dog about 6:30 this morning, 7. And it's very, very nice. It's a nice temperature, not raining, and it's nice. It's too dark though this time of year when you wake up. It's really, when you wake up, it's just like the summer. You're like, okay, the sun's out, I'm happy, and ready to start the day. But when you wake up at 6:30, you're like, it's still going to be dark in another hour. It's just very, 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 well, gets you down anyway.
Well, it's going to be the night of the long nights, because I put out a little thing. I lay in my bed at about 4:30 thinking, I've got to get up now, which I had. So I pulled out my phone and I did a little thing. So I yelled at everybody, get up, get up, get up. You better come and roar with Fergus and I. So people may be waiting for you as well with knives to cut our throats to make sure that we don't yell at them every morning to say get up. But it just took my fancy this morning that if I was up, they should be up too. Fergus, where do you see, and let's just not particularly whine, because what you are is you are what would be known as an SME, a small to medium enterprise. Where do you see SMEs going? Because once again, surprising figures. We always look at the big companies and we say, oh, that's where they are. But 80% of the EU economy was made up of SMEs, and I was a bit surprised when I looked at the figures for the UK, because we're even higher than that. We're at 85 to 90 as SMEs. In other words, what you do and what I do in a business sense, we're a part of the mass producers in this country, even though we're quite small. Do you feel that you're treated fairly as a small business? Or are there problems that you would love to see wiped out?
Yeah. I mean, I think this nation is built on small businesses, people trying to make a living for themselves in their little shops. That's the community aspect. But personally, I think it is just a dog eat dog mud, and it is hard if you're an SME to keep fighting and keep plugging away, as you probably know. So yeah, and you just I think I'm probably an outcast in my younger generation, right? But what I think is missing with technology improving, you're sort of missing that personal or that relationship angle, which I think the SMEs are built on, that sort of relationship between a supplier and it's just when you go drive over, go meet them and chat to them, how you can Zoom them or FaceTime them, and it doesn't see that personal relationship or that extra on to go and see them. I think is missing. So, but in terms of what need help with the SMEs, at the moment, I'm in a fine situation. I keep ticking along, keep plugging away. I have a second job that sort of helps support my life, basically. So I pay myself in the job I do. And so, well, sometimes I do when I need to. So basically, yeah, it's you just got to keep plugging away, I'd say. Yeah.
You must have done a fair amount of travelling as an expert on wine, and the fact that's the core of your business. So, have the travel restrictions hit you at all?
Yeah, we were born in lockdown, so we started. Our anniversaries, our 1 year anniversary is coming up on the 24th of November. So we were born in lockdown. And so we haven't really had a chance to explore yet with all the restrictions, and especially over summer, even when people get double vaccinated. And yeah, it just felt unsafe. It didn't feel like safe to go out and start exploring places. When I was a child, I did go out, explore and travel a fair amount. Yeah, this is sort of still new territory, basically, in terms of going out and visiting places.
Now, I can see a celebration coming up, because the anniversary, your first anniversary, is 4 days before my actual birthday. So, although you're 1 year old, as I'll be 21 years old, and so I think we should have a joint celebration. And if you believe that, you'll believe anything. Oysters and champagne coming up, I can see. Right, now I've got one last clip, because the time is 8:45 exactly, 8:45. So when I've been yelling at you this morning, get up, some of you would have rolled over and said, tell him to get lost. But there's no question that many people are already, the 8 o'clock seems to be the standard, up and poaching an egg and not breaking it like us. I can't remember what this one is about. Let's take a look. He said, right. Ah.
doing my teeth. I've not had a chance to go and look at it.
Really? Like the painless one?
It's gone down a bit now, but...
Is it that now? Like, how do you listen to it?
I don't really know, it's just swollen.
Well, you know that, it's all pendant, you've got an infection.
Yeah, it's got a bit better. So I've had it a few days, but it's slowly going now, I think. And I haven't had time to go to the dentist, and I think it will work, so... How long have they been now?
Last week on Monday, Tuesday we're going. What day is it? Yeah, we do it yesterday. I suppose I can't wait.
Yeah, I bet. How long are you going for? A week?
9 nights, 10 days, yeah. Going on the Tuesday, coming back Thursday, yeah. And then it's the 1st of October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, moving parts or something as well.
Yeah, so we've now selected until 7 o'clock.
Well, that's an interesting one. I'd forgotten I'd put that in there. And much like you, Andrew Sloan, who owns Grizzly Barber Shop, we're developing a program. Is more or less a bit like what the butler saw, but this is what the barber heard. And he chats to selected customers, because not everybody wants to be their secrets known on television, of course, but customers that don't mind. And he's putting together a program, but he's also going to co-host the program as you are this morning with me once a week, so that we can get a different perspective. And he's a very decent chap. Once again, he's like us. He's a small to medium enterprise man. He actually did all sorts of things to save up his money, and he started off with a rented premises, and now I think he's actually either leased or bought premises in Market Street, and doing very well, very popular. And one of the interesting marketing things that he's brought in is, I don't think for everybody, but just for favourite customers, is when I go there, which I do once every other week, to have my hair done, whatever's left of it. Let's have a look. Yeah, well, there's a bit left. Is the coffee always has a Jack Daniels in it. And I'm not sure whether it steadies my head for his hand, or whether in fact it's just one of those nice things where I can relax while I spend an hour having my hair pampered. So once again, it is nice with people like you and Andrew and others to see the entrepreneurial spirit and the getting cracking, starting small businesses from scratch and having a go. Is one of my main complaints, I suppose, is being in business, is that and I hope, Fergus, that you will be around in the first couple of days of December, because our New York producer, Melissa Conti, is coming over the first time she'll be back in almost 30 years to the UK. And she's coming down to Lewis because she is still part of Mirador, but also she and her son love the history of the place. But we were talking about how to get into broadcasting, because it is a tough job. In fact, it's tough to get into almost anything nowadays. And she said, she now she's an award-winning journalist. She was the co-anchor with me. I was in London, she was in New York, of a program called Morning Business Report, which was a coast-to-coast American business program. So she's reached the pinnacles in the past, so she knows what it's all about. And she said she worked for free for 4 years just to get the experience to get a job. Now, in this industry, in the broadcast industry, the places are getting fewer and scarcer because of the technology takeover and the mergers and acquisitions and so on and so forth. And yet, a lot of youngsters seem to think that their degree will get them everywhere. And of course, we're all looking for somebody who knows what he's doing the moment he crosses the threshold. And I don't know how we get that through to them. They're very nice youngsters and very talented when it comes to editing and so on. But the realization that out in the marketplace it's pretty tough to get a job doesn't seem to hit them until it's too late. And the sad figure is that about 80% of people who have university degrees in some form of media thing end up in the hospitality industry. In other words, a lot of them end up as barmen, and nothing wrong with being a barman, but not after you've flogged your guts out to try and be a broadcaster or a journalist for 4 years and spent a fair amount of money. What about your industry? I mean, is it easy to get into the wine industry, or really people have to do what you've done? And
so if you're probably going to work at a vineyard, I know there's apprenticeships going in certain places, such as Rathbinny. I know that a friend of mine got into Rathbinny through an apprenticeship, and then went on to, I think they then supported his education at Plumpton College, obviously just down the road from us, in a wine-related course or wine producing or something like that, or wine. And so yeah, I think that within that area, it's obviously if you're going down that spectrum, especially if you just go off your own back and not to go through any support of a vineyard, then going into something like that, I think anybody would be willing to have to go up, to be honest with you. Frost is pretty applicable. And I'm not sure of the details of the course, but there probably would be some sort of work placement or something like that out of the vineyard that would probably help you within that area. But within the sort of drinking industry in general, I think it's quite a tough market. A friend of mine who's qualified, he's got level 3 in WSET for wine. He used to run the cellar at Glyndebourne Opera House as well. He was having trouble finding a job within the wine industry, so wine sales or anything like that. So I don't know whether age probably is beneficial within the wine industry. If you're older, you have more experience, it does benefit you getting into some sort of role like that. As a sales rep for a wine house or a champagne house. So yeah, I think it is tough wherever you go. You're going to have other people applying for the same job, and it's that sort of how you present yourself across in the interview. Can you know what you're talking about, and have you got the right qualifications? So yeah, I think it's just tough. But I do agree with the younger generation.
Yeah, I mean it is tough out there, and I'm glad that I'm not glad, but I'm interested that your industry is reflecting ours, that experience is the key, and if you go along for a job interview with your degree and your experience, then at least you get onto the short list. I pointed out, this was just before lockdown, that we put an ad in for a videographer, and if we accept the fact that we're growing, we're a potty little operation, and we got 175 applicants in 24 hours for one job in a potty little organisation. I mean, it's not little, well, it's growing, but it's still potty as long as I'm in charge. But the fact is, can you imagine when a job comes up in the paper or whatever for the BBC or for ITV or for one of the big boys is how many people apply, and that doesn't seem to have managed to filter through to either the youngsters or, for that matter, the universities, who turn them out with good technical skills but not an appreciation of what's needed in the marketplace. And frankly, anybody who can make coffee is already one step up the rung, because most editors, when somebody walks in through the door, says, right, you're the last in, you get the coffee for everybody. Anyway, we are, it's now, oh goodness gracious me, it's 8:56, 8:57. Where does the time go when you're having fun? Fergus, it's been a delight to have you with us. We're looking forward to your program, which should be operating in a couple of weeks' time, I hope. I know that Tony, our new studio manager, is going to get in touch with you to talk about times to come down and do it. It was a very popular program then, and I'm sure there'll be a very popular program now. What I said is that we're trying to find you a nice young lady who can shout at you and you shout back. Strangely enough, the ladies don't seem to be so keen on coming on air anymore. Although I'm very proud that I found at least 4 ladies who actually do very well and could have gone. They could have really gone places if they'd have stuck with it. But unfortunately, babies get in the way, and also schools and so on and so forth. It's not so easy for a lady to make its way. The feminists will be after me now. I've got the Muslims and the Christians, and now the feminists walking out of this studio is going to be very, very dangerous. So, here we are, 6:58, turning up to 6:59. So we'll say cheerio, and we look forward to seeing you regularly on Mirador. Well, once a week, because you're going to do this every week. God bless you, and with your own show. Now, very carefully spell out the name of your company and how people get in touch with you.
So the company is called Camino del Vino. That's CAMINO DELVINO. And you can Google us you can Google us online, or you can send an email to me at happiness@caminodelvino.com.
There we go. And if you better get there for Christmas. Did you give out your email address?
I did, happiness@caminodelvino.co.uk, or you can find us on social media as well at @caminodelvino_. That's us on Instagram. Also, something along those sort of lines. You can type in Camino Delvino on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can find us all over the shop, basically. We're very active on social media. I like to do nice, short little videos about our wine for the week, variety, uses and stuff like that. So it's a real entertaining social media.
I can see what's going to happen. Is you're going to come on your weekly thing and say, I'm not in the wine business anymore, I've sold out. Fergus, thank you very much. It is actually now 8:59 and time for us to say goodbye. So cheerio, Fergus, and I'll say goodbye to those of you who watched now. And I know that a large number actually check in throughout the day to take a look. The technology wasn't that hot again this morning, but at least we did get hold of Fergus, and we'll now start to examine if there are ways that we can actually get around this rather stuttery picture that we get. So there we are. It is 9 o'clock exactly, and let's say, I think, toodle pip. Indeed, let us say, toodle pip. See you tomorrow.